Minute with your hosts, Tom McNamara and Bruce Woodburn.
Wow, you like that so much you had to play it twice.
Well, I'm not sure that it came through the first time, so we'll make sure that it did. It is fun, though.
All right. Well, Mike Tyson's going to be fighting again here soon. So having that rumble, that just brings it right all together. Now we got bare knuckle fighting. What's it going to come to next?
That's going to be a fun event. It is going to be a fun event for sure. So
it'll certainly be a money grab for somebody. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Good.
So
good.
Hey, as we come up, we're approaching Memorial Day at the end of this month, right? So and I'm always thinking about our veterans, our service veterans. Being a veteran myself, and I meet with a lot of veterans, and when selling homes, the sellers that I use, there's a lot of misconceptions about the different loan programs, right? Like which one's a better loan program? Why is it a better buyer, right? I mean, clearly cash is the best because it's easiest and less
provided, Tom, that it is at a fair and equitable price. But if it's a discounted cash, then
yeah. But I'm saying, if somebody's paying cash, it's the easiest way to buy. But not, I don't know what the percentage is, but a high percentage, let's say in the 80s for sure, percent of people that buy a home get a mortgage of some kind, right?
Yeah, more than 80%.
Yeah, I'm sure it's north of 80%. So, again, honoring veterans, let's talk a little bit about VA loans, because I think they get a bad rap sometimes.
Do they ever?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and give that. I mean, so why should a seller consider a VA loan?
Well, let's just cover that then. I've got 5 reasons why a seller should choose the veteran to negotiate with first. So number 1 reason, let's put this up here. Number 5, I should say, just because they're not putting a down payment doesn't mean they're less qualified. But in the eyes of the seller, and most of the time, Tom, you and I well know it, it's not the seller that's making the decision. It's the guidance from the listing agent. So they look at that and they go, wow, Tom, we got a conventional offer, we got an FHA offer, and we got a VA offer. But the veteran's not putting any money down. My conventional guy's putting down 20%. Let's entertain the conventional offer. It's a better deal. Now, here's the reality of it, that the seller has no clue as to which transaction is the most well qualified. Correct. Because just because a veteran is entitled to do no down payment does not mean they're less qualified. They could be just as qualified as anybody else. The down payment is not really the significant difference. The difference is who has been thoroughly vetted by the lender. Has the lender 100% approved this buyer and looked at everything? So the down payment does not have as much of an impact as most people think it does.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. When I'm talking to sellers about that, I remind them that they don't get the down payment money. They get whatever the proceeds are, which include
they get whatever they're selling the house for. It makes no difference to them. But their perception is the more you have down, the better you qualify, the better qualified you are.
And I could understand that if they weren't wrong. So
on the surface, it sounds logical, but from my standpoint, when I'm looking at loans, man, I'm telling you, I've got conventional buyers that are putting down 30%, and they're putting down 30% because they're banging up against a 50% debt ratio. They don't have a lot of reserves. And we'll talk about reserves in this as well. But there's a lot of reasons. Credit scores are far more limited. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure. All right. So let's go. Reason number 4.
So higher debt ratios. So conventional loans only allow for a conventional buyer to max out at a 50% debt ratio, which is a pretty high debt ratio. But you go from 49.999% debt ratio to 50.001, you're out of there. No conventional buyer. And remember, loan officers are the ones that are pre-approving the files, not underwriters, right? So by the time it hits the underwriter might look at that conventional loan and go, whoa, 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 you're using too much income for his bonuses or his overtime or her commissions. And that weren't calculated perfectly, and you're off by any money, it can throw you off. A veteran,
that reminds me of your program, right? Where, and fast track, I think you call it, where you actually pre-underwrite the buyers, right?
Correct.
So which is something as a listing agent that I really look for, right, in the loan officer that I'm going to work with, for whoever it is, right? I mean, when that loan officer tells me, yeah, they're pre-underwritten versus I talked to them yesterday.
With an underwritten commitment, it makes a world of difference.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to the veteran versus the conventional buyer, the down payment is not as significant. VA loans, higher debt ratio limit. I've seen over 60% allowable on a veteran. They have so much more flexibility than a conventional buyer, even more flexible than an FHA buyer.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's go on to the next one. We're down on to number 3. So
all right,
reserve. So what are reserves, man?
It's an interesting thing because reserves are extremely important, and yet loan officers will miss this when they're running their pre-approvals. Mm-hmm. So a reserve is the amount of money that you have left over after the closing for cash in the bank. So banks and lenders don't want you to go to the closing table and you're flat broke. You have no money to move in. You can't turn on your electric and your water. You just have no money left, right? So they don't want that. Now, on a conventional loan, you're required to have 2 times your monthly payment. And then if you have a second home or rental properties, you're required 6 times your monthly payment. 6 times for each house that you have. Now, that's where it trips people up, that they don't seem to understand, because it's a conventional loan is not always a sweeter deal. So reserves aren't required on a VA loan.
That's an interesting, that's a really good, that's a really good factor right there.
Now, one thing that trips up loan officers on VA loans is something called residuals. So VA does have an extra layer on top of the debt ratio issue that says you have to have this much money left over at the end of the month, but it's in a payment. It's not in cash.
Okay. Got it. All right. We're on to number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah.
They're far more flexible with credit scores than a conventional loan. Conventional loans, listen, right now, a 720 credit score on a conventional loan is not a great score. It's no longer.
It used to be a really good score to have.
You used to think of it. And for FHA and VA, you're golden. But for a conventional loan, I will tell you, your interest rate will be higher if you have a 719 versus a 720. Your interest rate will be higher if you have a 729 versus a 730, all the way up to 760. So a 759, you're going to pay a higher interest rate than a 760. Middle score. VA, you're over 640. Your score, your rate's probably not going to change that much.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a lot more flexibility.
I'm curious because we're taking this from the seller's point of view, right? So, obviously you check credit scores when I apply, right?
Right.
I hope you check it when I apply or when you're doing underwriting. Do you check it again at some point during the process?
The credit should not need to be reviewed during the loan process unless the lender gets some type of a UDM, which is an alert that would tell us that you just went out and bought something significant on a credit card. You got a new car loan. Then or even if you paid off a debt. So oftentimes, if we've got clients that we need to pay off debt in order to qualify, we'll have that debt paid at closing. Because if you do it ahead of time, then I'm going to get a UDM alert, which you would think was positive. Hey, Bruce, I just paid off the debt. Aren't you glad for me? No, no, no. Now I got to get a whole new credit report. So things like that can affect it. So that's why we typically want debts to be paid at closing. Now, if we're trying to improve credit scores, we may need to do that in advance. But
you're doing that ahead of time, and you're actually pulling the credit when it's right versus.
That's right.
Yeah, I got you. All right, we're on reason number one.
Number one reason, okay? There's no PMI on a VA loan. So that doesn't necessarily seem to impact the seller as much, but it impacts your debt ratio. It impacts everything. So PMI, people don't realize, is also underwritten. It's an insurance policy.
Sure.
So it's underwritten. And I've seen conventional buyers that qualify for DU LP, which is the automated underwriting systems that lenders use, but they don't qualify for the PMI. So that's another thing. Lenders run at pre-approval how much the PMI is going to be, but they don't physically have the loan underwritten for PMI much later in the process. This is something that sellers would have no knowledge of that's going on behind the scenes. And when you see transactions fall apart, then it can be for any number of these reasons. So, you know something, these are great reasons to choose a veteran. You know, it's important that we do everything we can for them. But you know, and I want to mention in this that Tom is a veteran. He served in the U.S. Navy. He served for our country. That is a commitment that a few great Americans make. I did not serve in the Army or any armed forces, but I have the utmost respect for our veterans, and I will bend over backwards to do whatever I can to help somebody that committed their lives. And you have to remember, Tom, and I know you do, but our listeners don't always remember this. It's not only the veteran that served, but it's their family, because they were without a dad while you were going to ballet practice or doing a recital or your basketball game. Could be any number of things that these our military friends sacrificed for us. So,
well, you know, and that brings us to our bonus reason, man. Right? I mean, if it wasn't for our veterans, we wouldn't have a home to sell at all. So,
you wouldn't.
You know, I mean,
we wouldn't have a home to buy. We wouldn't have a home to sell. We wouldn't have a great job that we have. We wouldn't have the freedom in this country. You know, many other countries around the world, they don't have mortgages. You either buy the house or you inherit the house, but you're not getting a loan on it in a lot of other countries. You know, it's only United States, Canada, Europe, some parts of South America, but other parts, no hipoteca, no mortgage. So, you know, it's a benefit that we have, but these veterans really served for us. And I think that if anything, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, we're always about telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth on this format. So there is one downside to a veteran. There's one downside, and I want to make you sellers aware of this, that you're listening, but I want you to get through it and push through it. A veteran, a VA appraiser can tend to be a little bit more restrictive on the condition of your property. Now, that means a fixer-upper may not qualify for a VA loan. And then you just have to be aware of that. That means, and even things like missing screens on the window, wood rot around the house, roof leaks, broken windows, any type of things like that. Now, could you need cosmetic work? VA doesn't care about that. Landscaping, painting, you know, a little touch up here and there, but they don't want the veteran to have to be succumb to additional expenses that they may not have been aware of after the closing.
Yeah, wood rot seems to be, I think if I would say the most issues I've had during a VA loan process, it's been one specific thing, and it's wood rot at the frame of a door.
Yeah. It's easy to fix.
And it's so easy. It's $100, whatever, you know, or if you want to spend the time, it's about
If
3
it
hours.
gets in the way of a veteran buying your house,
Yep.
I'll pay for the wood rot to be fixed
Absolutely.
around the door.
Absolutely.
How about that?
Yeah.
I'll do
Bruce,
whatever I've got to do for that veteran. And listen, if you want to buy a home, sell a home, then come to me, come to Tom. We can help you in any of our 50 states. And we'd be honored to assist a veteran. If you are a seller, don't skip over the veteran because they're putting no money down. Just don't do it. It's not right. They have already paid the price for you and I. Let's give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. Tom,
absolutely.
It looks like we're running out of time, brother. I think we got to run.
We are, man. We are. You have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you next week.
Yep. And peace to all our veterans, and thank